Welcome to AWAKEN 2024. Stay woke in voting rights as the movement continues. We now bring to the stage Ms. Denise Gilmore, Senior Director of the Division of Social Justice and Racial Equity with the City of Birmingham Mayor.
Good morning and welcome. I am so glad that you are here, and of course, stay woke in voting rights. Now, why would we say stay woke in voting rights? Because we think it's important for you to be wide awake, to be informed, to be motivated, and to actively pursue your right to vote. I am Denise Gilmore. I serve as Senior Director of the Division of Social Justice and Racial Equity in the Mayor's Office. Welcome to this presentation of AWAKEN 2024. AWAKEN is the annual celebration presented by the division to gather community members to have transformative conversations, to celebrate our elders, and empower the next generation of social justice advocates. Today we have the special privilege of hearing from those who have fought the good fight and continue to fight the good fight to ensure that we have a right to vote. We are especially delighted to honor Judge U.W. Clemon for the monumental contributions that he has made not only to Birmingham but into our country. We often hear that each election is the most important election. It is the most critical. And I really believe that each election is the most important election, especially the one in 11 days where we get to vote for the country that we want to live in. Thank you.
We now welcome to the stage Dee Reed, Alabama lead organizer of Black Voters Matter.
You say, vote. And then someone says, democracy is a sham. Those people don't speak for me. The system is rigged. You say, vote. And then someone says, it doesn't matter if this state's red and that state's blue. This thing's already on law. You say, vote. And then someone says, hey, I'm making a statement by not voting. And then you say, well, I can't hear it. This is not about the White House. This is about your house. If you're not registered to vote, you can't sit on a jury. You can't choose your mayor. You can't choose your city council. You can't even choose your district attorney. You can't decide which measures will help your family and which will put them at risk. Democracy is not a sham. It's a job. It's our job. And it took too long to get it to just let it slide. You say, vote. Because there are still some people out there that don't want you to.
So when voting rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. Yeah, we vote too. When voting rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. I'm going to say it this time, and then you'll state it. When voting rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. Stand up, fight back. This year's theme at Black Voters Matter is We Fight Back. Somebody say, we fight back. And in our quest to realize justice, equity, and true liberation, we do it with people like Jamarcus in mind. He represents our future, just like you, Mayor, you, Jordan, and so many others represented the future for the late Congressman John Lewis, Cheyenne Weld, and all of the other freedom fighters who were beaten, bloodied, and bruised on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma. They did so with each and every one of us in mind, with our futures in mind. This is why voting matters. Now, we know today's lens is different, Pastor Beavers. I mean, this election season, it has hit a whole lot different. With all of the attacks on voting rights, women's rights, the attacks on Black history, or should I say, American history. It's time for us to pick up our rock and defeat the giant that stands in front of each of us. So 40 years ago, Reverend Jesse Jackson, he stood in a packed room and he challenged everyone there to pick up their rock and do what? Vote. He told the story of the little shepherd boy and how he was able to defeat Goliath with one smooth stone. But essentially, he likened those rocks, that stone, to votes. So in Jefferson County, those rocks are 209,228 registered Black voters. But get this, 45,357 of them have never voted. 55,119 of them are infrequent voters, meaning they may vote in a local but may not vote in a presidential, or they vote in a presidential but may not vote in local elections. So family, I'm here to say we got to pick up our rocks. That's more than 100,000 rocks that can be lifted through phone banks, through door-to-door canvassing, through texting, through true grassroots organizing. And for those of you who are like, listen, D, I'm already doing all the things. I'm sure at times you wonder if your work will ever really make a difference. But let me remind you that it was Dr. King who jeopardized his freedom and, get this, was arrested 29 times. And had he drawn the line at losing his own freedom and stopped fighting, there's a good chance that we would have never seen the Civil Rights Act of 1965. So family, I say stay in the fight and pick up your rock. And even on your hardest days, Janice, when the weight of your assignment brings you to your knees, don't stay down too long, Michelle, because we need each and every one of you in the fight to pick up your rock so that we can defeat these Goliaths that show up in front of us. Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, also known as Fighting Shirley, decided to pursue the unpursued. And because of that, we can now see that the dream for presidency was never deferred, but it was only a promise in process. Today we celebrate Judge Clemon and his commitment to pick up every rock surrounding him. We celebrate you for staying in the good fight, and not just for you, but for liberty and justice for all. So there is a new way forward, but we only get there if you, and you right here in the pink, and you right here in the beige, if each and every one of us pick up our rocks and continue to empower others, like Jamarcus, to do the same. Thank you so much.
We now welcome Terrence Stinson and Darylyn Stanfield with the Star Praise Choir.
I need you, you need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me, agree with me. We're all a part of God's body. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You You are important to me. I need you to survive. I need you. You need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me. Agree with me. We're all a part of God's body. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. I pray for you. You pray for me. I love you. I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. I pray for you. You pray for me. I love you. I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. I pray for you. You prayed for me. I love you. I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. I pray for you. You prayed for me. I love you. I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. Every second of my life, Lord, you are important to me. I need you to survive. We need you, Lord. We need you, Lord. Important to me. I need you to survive.
We now welcome to the stage our moderator for today, CBS News anchor Sherry Jackson, who will first give us a few words about the importance of this AWAKEN event.
Well, good morning. Should I take this mic? Should I take this mic? Can you hear me here? Good morning. Good morning. I will just say, on this occasion, the importance of this event. My job as a journalist is to bear witness to what happens in our society and tell the story. In 2024, I'm faced with the opportunity to tell the story that so many told back during the civil rights movement. We get a chance to write this first draft of history, and so it gets your attention when you feel like you're writing the story that you already read. I pulled this quote because I wanted this for our panelists, but I'm going to use it right now because I think that on this occasion in 2024 in Alabama, I would be remiss not to circle back to Congressman John Lewis, who said to us, "Don't get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful, be optimistic. Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It is the struggle of a lifetime. Never ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble." And so that is what I leave with you this morning in your individual place as you listen to the news and read the news and see what's happening in your community, in our state, and in our nation. I ask you that question: what is the good and necessary trouble of our time? How are we taking that baton? And so it is my treat to certainly be a part of anything that's honoring Judge Clemon. A brilliant mind, a lion, and just a treasure for us. And that really, Judge Clemon, is why I accepted the opportunity to be a part of this very important conversation on voting rights, because I know sometimes people aren't paying attention, but we have to stay awake to what's happening around us.
Thank you. We now welcome to the stage our panelists for today. Mayor Randall L. Woodman, Janice Gentry, Alabama State Director of Vote. Our U.S. Representative Terry Sewell will be in momentarily, but now please join me as we welcome to the stage our beloved guest of honor, the retired Judge, Honorable U.W. Clemon.
There's our Congresswoman.
Well, I am delighted to moderate this panel and moderate this important discussion with all of you and get some answers, but hear your heart mostly. And so I read that quote from John Lewis, and what I'd like to just ask you all again, and now hear your answers, and we'll start with Judge Clemon. We'll work our way that way, and then we'll come back to Mayor Woodfin. What is the good, necessary trouble of our time?
Well, the trouble about time is that of getting American citizens, black and white, out to the polls for this next election. Because unlike the dangers posed 56 years ago by Bull Connor and George Wallace, we now have a threat to the very existence of democracy in our nation. And it is a threat that can only be met by the total involvement of people of goodwill at the ballot box.
I agree with Judge Clemon wholeheartedly. I think that the
The fact that on our collective watch, we're seeing us go backwards and not forwards on so many civil rights and voting rights issues is frightening. The reality is that modern day voter suppression is alive and well. It may not be the poll tax or the literacy test, but it's no less pernicious. And we have to fight against that by doing everything we can to vote. That means coming up with a voting plan, know where your precinct is, make sure that your name is still on the rolls because they're purging rolls, and complying with state law because it is a state law. Until we can change it, we have to comply with it. So we know that we have to show a form of a photo ID. There are 9 forms of photo ID. Let's educate each other, and let's remember that the power, our vote is our voice in this democracy. And we should not let anyone silence our voice. I'm really, really worried that on our watch, we are going backwards and not forwards. The 60th anniversary of the Selma to Montgomery March is going to be this coming March. We march in the 60th. And to think, Judge Clemon, that we have gone backwards. I mean, the Shelby versus Holder decision gutted federal oversight of state laws. That's why you see all of these states, not just southern states, coming up with all of these voter suppression laws. I mean, North Dakota, after the Shelby versus Holder decision in 2013, they imposed a requirement that you had to have a physical address in order to register to vote, knowing that on tribal lands in Indian country, they only have P.O. boxes. And so in order to fight it, we now no longer have pre-clearance. So in order to fight it, you see the LDF, NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and the Southern Poverty Law Center filing all of these lawsuits. But what's interesting is that you can't unring the bell. There's no prophylactic way of preventing these state laws from coming into effect. We can only sue after the fact. So we have to be vigilant. We need to get into some real necessary trouble. And part of that is just knowing the law and making sure that we're complying with it. And with that said, I voted already because I'm not sure if I'm going to be here on the day of the election. And you know you can go to your Jefferson County courthouse, either the one in Bessemer or the one downtown, and you can actually demand a ballot today. So if you don't want to stand in lines, if you're not really sure if you're going to be sick or not sure you're going to be here, please go and vote now.
Congresswoman Sewell. Janice, the good necessary trouble of our time. Thank you for that.
Vote now.
Yes, ma'am. I think the first piece is definitely voting. That's how we get in good trouble. But it's also how do you fit into the movement? Because during the civil rights movement, it was people that cooked for people in the movement. It was people that did carpools. So finding out how do you fit in best to this movement now? Can you text bank? Like D. Reed was saying, can you phone bank? Can you take people to the polls? Can you look up their polling locations? Can you register them to vote? And one of my big things now is making sure that the next generation knows how important voting is. So that's educating them, that's taking them to the polls. So that's how you get in good trouble.
I shouldn't be on this stage. I just want to start there. There's too many giants on this stage who have it in spades on the importance of this issue. But in all seriousness, good morning, everyone. There are some folk I want to acknowledge before I jump in. I want to acknowledge my colleague here, Valerie Abbott, who represents City Council District 3. I see Judge Lee Loader up here, as well as Sheriff Petway, as well as Governor Don Siegelman. And we have a legend in his own right among us. Mr. Woods, we see you, sir, and we appreciate you. And I got some more remarks I want to make soon. But to the question, look, good trouble is happening right now. There is a new congressional district in the state of Alabama, y'all. And Congresswoman, you know that was a fight. That was a fight that made its way all the way to the Supreme Court.
We won that one.
And the good guys won. Let's make sure a little less than 2 weeks from now that good trouble continues to happen with folks from Montgomery, Mobile, the Black Belt,
Tuskegee.
the portion of the Wiregrass, doing the necessary things to make sure why that fight happened the way it did and what we must do. Go ahead. No, it's too much talent on this stage. Go ahead.
That's a good transition to this next question, which is about actually getting people to the polls to vote. We talk about registration. Dee gave some really good statistics on Jefferson County. To get a little more granular, in Birmingham, 2017, 142 registered voters, 142,000 registered voters in the city. 26% voted in that mayoral election, Mayor Woodfin. 2021, 145,000 people registered in Birmingham for the municipal election. 25% voted. And so the question is, how do you get people to vote? And I'm going to go to you, Judge Clemon, because could you ever imagine a time that people had this right that people died for, especially people of color, and then they didn't go vote? What is your reflection on that? How does that hit you?
Well, it is surprising and disappointing that many black people fail to recognize the continuing need to go to the polls. Once they see black faces in responsible positions, they assume that things will work out or that things don't matter, all to their detriment. And so it is, as an old man who has fought long and hard for civil rights, it is very disappointing that many of the younger people don't realize the necessity of continuing to vote, and to vote as religiously as going to church.
And so we've all gotten this call to do something in 2024. And so that part, what are we doing to get people to vote? Janice, I'm going to go to you. We'll circle back, because I would like for you to weigh in on that as well, Mayor, and you, Congresswoman Sewell. But specifically, because of the work you're doing, what do you do to get people to vote?
I would say the best thing that I can do when I'm with people on the streets is getting them to see a connection of why we vote. Most people say like, oh, it's the presidential election, that's not gonna really affect me, but I don't think most people have even looked at the sample ballots that are out right now, seeing that there are Congress people on that ballot, there's senators on that ballot, people for school board, there's amendments on that ballot that affect them locally, so just getting them to see that correlation.
Mayor Woodfin, in the city, how do you translate to the constituents here that when they vote, it actually affects policy and what happens in the mayor's office?
So make civics cool again. I think we have to. We're missing civics in a bad way, y'all. And I'm a hybrid. I'm like a tail end Generation X, like a old Y. But they're like 2 generations under me, millennials and Gen Z. And if we don't teach them civics, whether it's going to be in the school or at home or at church or in the community, whatever place it has to be taught. Because what I tell young people all the time is democracy is a participatory sport. It was never designed for your mayor and your council to just do all the work. You have to have citizens doing their part. Part of that part is voting. And it's unacceptable for only 1 out of 4 residents to participate in municipal elections. And the things we want, what I also tell people is that I'm hard on them. You can't be a hypocrite. You can't complain and not vote. You can't do both. You got to choose one. And so we also try to encourage. So part of the encouragement is literally boots on the ground. We believe the ability to lace up your shoes, go out here, knock on doors, sit on porches, stand in front yards, kicking at barbecues and whatever else it does to tell people the importance of why are you not registered? Let me tell you why you should be registered. Let me remind you when the election is. Oh, let me get on your nerves. I'm going to come back and knock on your door. We're going to call your house. We're going to text you. We're going to physically drag you to the polls. We believe in standing on your porch until you get in the car and go vote. And that's because that's what it takes. We can't believe everyone's just going to vote because we tell them to vote. So we have to encourage, we have to push, we have to drag, we have to get on people's nerves, we have to over-communicate with them, not just about who's on the ballot, but why you have to vote. Set aside who's on the ballot for a second, everybody. Just the importance of voting alone is sheer, not just power, but empowerment. Voting is about empowerment, and I think, unfortunately, a lot of times, our residents in various generations don't feel empowered. So we want to encourage them to get beyond likability or the opposite of likability. I'm not voting because I don't like this person, or I'm only voting because I like this person. And remind them of the civics of voting and the power in that, and them feeling empowered changes things in community at every level, locally, state, and federally.
That very important answer. Thank you, Mayor Whitfin. That flips back when we hear this, the phrase that democracy is on the ballot. This part of the democracy, when people don't participate, is very much under indictment right now in our country. Congresswoman Sewell, you talked about how these laws happen, and then there has to be a legal fight to get laws changed, sort of that cyclical part. And sometimes people feel hopeless with that, and what is the use? What do you say to the work that you do in Washington, specifically on the Congressman Lewis, the John Lewis Voting
Rights Advancement Act.
That one. It's languishing, but the importance of getting something like that passed so that some of these old battles that are disappointing for Judge Clemon, that those battles are not there anymore.
Great question. I think that it's interconnected to the last question you asked. You have to make the connection for people between their vote and change. So I often say, you think your vote doesn't matter? Think about Georgia having a black and a Jewish senator. It mattered. People showed up and they got elected. You think Barack Obama would have gotten elected if we didn't go en masse to go vote? Now we have to hold the people that are elected accountable. Clearly, we have to do that. But don't tell me our vote doesn't matter. It matters. And I think you have to also let people realize that the vote is fundamental and foundational to every other right you want. Whether that is the right and the freedom, to marry who you want to marry, to, reproductive freedom, environmental, whatever your issue is, seriously, whatever the thing is that is so important to you, voting gets you there. Voting gets you there. And so I am just encouraged when I see young people talking to young people, our mayor talking to folks about the right to vote, because people think that happened in 1965, and what do you mean I have the right to vote? Of course I have the right to vote. People don't even make the connection to why Alabama's law, most recent law about absentee ballots, it's now a felony to help someone fill out an absentee ballot. Who do you think that's directed at? Who do you think that's directed at? Now, we have to follow the law until we can change the law. And so your question was what we can do on the federal level. And the Supreme Court's gutting of the Voting Rights Act directly impacted, it is directly focused at Congress. Because what the Supreme Court said was, in 2013, we have a black president. Surely the Voting Rights Act has already done what it's supposed to do. And we live in a post-racial society. Now, y'all know that's not true. But and so What happened after that was that we saw all of these states, including ours, a lot of these state houses in 2010 were taken back by Republicans. In Alabama, the first time in 100 years. And on their agenda, just like they got a Project 2025, they had a Project 2010, and they have been executing that plan, haven't they, Judge? I mean, to a T. Not just on voting. Think about how we are now, diversity and equity and inclusion is on the ballot. I mean, they want to take, diversity has always been the strength of America and our excellence and our ingenuity. But now all of a sudden, University of Alabama won't get state funds unless it what? Abolishes its DEI office. Y'all, we're going backwards on our watch, not forwards. Didn't our grandmothers and our mothers fight the fight for reproductive rights? I thought so. It goes to show you that progress is elusive. And every generation has to hold on to the progress that we've made as a nation and try to advance it. Because if you're not holding on and you're being vigilant about it, you lose it. So when the Supreme Court said to Congress, you reauthorize for 25 years the Voting Rights Act based off of what happened in 1960, 1950, and now we're in the present day. And so unless you can come up with a present modern day formula for determining which states have had a history of voter discrimination, that provision of pre-clearance requiring the Department of Justice to pre-clear every voting law in these 16 jurisdictions went away. Alabama's whole state was a part of the jurisdictions that was covered. That meant they couldn't change a polling station without getting DOJ approval. You do realize that, right? So that by doing away with that, now states can run amok. They can do whatever they want to do unless we sue to get help. And so the bill that I carry, and I'm proud to carry it because Alabama brought us the Voting Rights Act, and guess what? It brought us the Milligan case. It also brought the Shelby case. But you know what? We've got to continue to be in the fight. You can't give up. You can be tired, you can be frustrated, but you can't give up. So the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act would restore federal oversight. That's simple. It would give us further protections to stop laws before they're enacted.
Yeah.
And that is why it's such a threat. It's such a threat. And Republican, we can't get Republicans to sign on to it.
Don't do it. Let her cook. She's cooking.
Let her cook.
Let her cook.
But that you spoke about what I think is the brilliance of our forefathers, really, Judge Clemon's generation. Yeah. They never took their eye off the prize. Exactly. And so when I say that Judge Clemon is a treasure and a brilliant mind and a lion, and that he's here, that we can all learn from him and his story, Judge Clemon, seeing it, sometimes we see it in the news, we say it on the news, and we're not really seeing the nuance of an agenda being carried out. For people who are watching that, what does it take to make sure you are prepared to fight on every level, prepared to fight in the courts, in the legal system? Because really that is what your generation did for us. They took this Constitution and made it represent us. They used it to give us the equality that we enjoy today.
Well, it's important to remember that the vote determines it all. Yes. Former Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, Charles Evans Hughes, says that at any point in American history, the Constitution means whatever 5 justices of the Supreme Court says that it means. No more, no less. And we've now got 6 justices of the Supreme Court who say that the Supreme Court, that the Constitution doesn't give us those rights that we thought we had won 50 years ago. And in order to determine who sits on the Supreme Court, you've got to vote and elect a president who will appoint the right justices to the Supreme Court, who will interpret the Constitution in the manner that we think justice demands. And so it's all a question of going out and voting for the right person to be president of the United States, who will appoint justices who will be faithful to the Constitution.
And not just the president. The president also appoints federal judges. How did we get Judge Clemon? We got Judge Clemon because Jimmy Carter got elected, and Jimmy Carter saw the brilliance of putting more black judges. How did we get Judge Jackson that we have on the Supreme Court now? Okay, because we elected Biden. So the dots, we have to connect the dots for people. And it matters who sits on those benches. Not just on the federal bench, we have on our ballot now probate judges. And it matters who sits on those benches and who administers that justice. Because they do it through their own lens. Ain't nothing magical about it. I mean, you got to find some law to fit in. but their lived experiences informs their decisions. Okay. I need folks to go and vote at every election. The dog catcher matters. Everybody matters.
It sounds like she'd have a ballot box right outside this door so you could vote on your way out. The young lady saying before we came up how we need each other to survive. And in our society where it is, everybody's at each other's throat. I wasn't alive in 1965 or prior to that when hate was so palpable. Hate looks different these days. And so when you're having these conversations with people who you suspect hate you, how do you get them to see the value of all of us participating in democracy? You guys think about that. I'm going to let whoever wants to answer that first. But Judge Clemon, I'm going to start with you because you lived that.
Well, the important thing to remember, since race is often endemic in the fabric of the American society, the important thing to remember is that race discrimination is class discrimination. And whether you like it or not, if you're black, you're a member of the class. You can't get out of it. You can't opt out. That's so true. So we have an unspeakable need for each other. We're all in it together. And we must act like it, seems to me. That would be the lesson that I would try to impress on our younger brothers and sisters.
Yeah. It's hard to come behind the judge because he just dropped a bar. But I will say this. In today's time, hate and negativity, unfortunately, are very profitable. In our media, in our TV media, in our print media, in our social media, in all forms of communication to the masses, hate and negativity, unfortunately, lead. We have to remind people there is more positive than there is negativity. And we have to be responsible for sharing that with all generations. But embedded in that is the importance and the power of voting. That the things we want to see, the things we want changed, the things we need in community, improving the quality of life at all levels, fairness, justice, all these things we need and deserve. voting, 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 voting. And so I think there are ways we can overcome some of this hate, but it does require an army. It requires an army of do-gooders. Folks are willing, as you said, to get into good trouble. But we got to be dogmatic and intentional about our platforms, including the right and the importance of voting.
Janice, I see you deep thinking over there, because I do want you to weigh in on this. You represent a generation, I think, of people who need to get this message. And it's so important that you're working to make sure that they get it. How do you cut through that noise of the negativity on the necessary part? Because I imagine people feel like, I don't want to participate.
I think the quote that Martin Luther King said, and I'm probably not saying it verbatim, but you can only drive out darkness with light. So you can't fight that negative with negative. You have to fight it with a positive, and just doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. And also, I would say an important thing right now, especially with my generation, millennials and Gen Z, is telling your story. We like social media, so we run to social media for our news, for our information, so it's making sure that the right stories are getting told, our stories are getting told from our perspective, because I think people can see the humanity in that, because back in the civil rights era, that's how people saw what was going on in Birmingham. It was the newspapers. It was seeing the kids out in the street getting water hosed down. It was seeing the children's marches, the dogs attacking our people. So just taking charge of what our story looks like, telling the history, because I think a lot of people now, either they just don't know the history or they don't respect the history, but just really making that connection with history and telling our story and making sure that people know that, because I know that there's an attack on our history and even the banned books and everything. So just really taking a hold of our story.
I want to follow up with you on this question, because misinformation is something that there is an onslaught of it right now, and there's a well-oiled machine pushing it. And people are reading things on social media that are just bananas, but they're believing some of this. How do you address that when you're out trying to just get people to register to vote?
I know a lot of people's favorite phrase right now is do your research. Yes, do your research, but find credible sources. And that can look like looking at government sites, nonpartisan sites, trusted individuals that have your best interests at heart. So that's what I would say. I'm glad you mentioned the misinformation, because that's something that we teach in our trainings for Woke Vote. What is misinformation and disinformation? And when people tell different stories, what's their interest in telling you that story? Are they trying to make you afraid? Are they using that as a fear tactic? Are they trying to inspire you? Are they trying to bring people together? So just knowing the motive behind the stories too, when you're deciding who you're going to listen to, where you're going to get your information from.
Absolutely. Good answer. Congresswoman Sewell, I'm going to come back to you on this disinformation, misinformation, that fight, because really, what we're reporting in the news, and it's true, there are some foreign actors taking part in this. Really, they understand the power of democracy and the power of the vote, and they're trying to undermine it. How do you guys address that on the federal level? And is there a unified, is there a bipartisan effort to say, hey, we got to stop this?
So to your latter, no, there's not a bipartisan effort. There are some Republicans and Democrats that have bills that would seek to hold accountable those platforms, because they're the ones who get that. They're the ones that they have to verify, in order to be on Twitter or whatever. And so they're the keepers of the information. And of course, none of them want to be regulated. None of them want to be. So we have to become smarter about this, because foreign actors definitely influenced last election, presidential election, and the presidential election before that. You had bots. I just learned what a bot was, but anyway, y'all young people probably know all that. But you would have fake people creating disturbances and differences among voters. They would say, horrible things about black people, and they would say that Democrats are doing that. And they would say, and it was to sow seeds of doubt and dissension. If our vote wasn't so powerful, why are people seeking to take it away from us? And so, we in the federal government, we're dysfunctional. I think y'all know that. That doesn't excuse us from not doing something. So there are lots of bills. I know I'm a part of a security bill that would actually make it really hard for foreign governments to actually even come in on some of the social media platforms. Now, I know that sounds extreme, but they're out to get us. And I have to tell you, Judge, the one day that our phone systems in the Capitol totally collapsed, it was on the vote about TikTok. Now, we weren't trying to take TikTok away. Please know that. We were not trying to take it away. We were trying to make sure that the ownership of TikTok was United States government, a United States company that actually has to follow U.S. law. Because the reality is TikTok's owned by the Chinese. They don't have the same laws that respect our privacy and all that other stuff. They can do with that information whatever they want to do with that information, and that is dangerous. That's all the bill said. Gave them 2 years to divest of their ownership by the Chinese government. But I'm telling you, I got so many calls, Judge, from young folks I didn't even knew my number. Talking, my niece was like, oh, "You're like ruining my friend's life. She's a social influencer," whatever that is. But anyway, so on a government level, we can only do so much. We have to educate our citizenry that these kinds of misinformation, disinformation are coming to get us. And we can't depend upon, no matter how great we love our mayor, we can't depend upon elected officials to do everything. Because here's the thing, even if we get the person we want in the White House, she needs a House of Representatives and a Senate that will actually pass her legislation. So we're all interconnected. To Judge Clemon's point, we're all interconnected. What happens to one of us does affect what happens to the other. And so we really just have to wake up and realize that there are limitations to every elected official's ability to keep the promises that they've made unless we elect people that will help them do that. A city council that will help them do that, a school board, our sheriff does a great job of law enforcement, but he needs our eyes and ears and our interest in our own communities to be effective. We have to care about our communities enough to be able to tell the police when things are going bad and who's doing it. Okay, we're all interconnected.
They've given me my 5-minute mark. You're awesome. They've given us a 5-minute mark, and I want to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to say what it is they wanted to say on this panel. I want to end with you, Judge Clemon, so I'm going to ask for quick comments so that we end with what you want to say and what your message is. What are you going to tell me?
Well, my daughter, I think I'll have an opportunity to say a few words.
You are. Well, I'm not going to steal your thunder. How about I give each of you an opportunity to say to Judge Clemon what it is you would want to say to him? Janice.
I'd like to say thank you, sir, for all that you've done for my generation and even before that and the generations that will come after me. And I hope that I can uphold the mantle of passing down that fight for just wanting to do stuff for your people. And I also want to charge everybody out here, like the mayor said, make civics cool again. Let's get the kids involved. Please take your kids, your grandkids, nieces and nephews to the polls, because Yes, we're trying to convince a lot of you, but we want to catch them while they're young. So please make it important. Take them to the Civil Rights Institute. Take them to the Legacy Museum. Take them to the polls with you. Let them get their little "I voted" sticker. Let them see what's on the ballots. Let them have an opinion about what's going on in the news and just get their minds going of what's going on. So please, just everybody get more involved and encourage the younger generation too.
Very important. Thank you. You two want to flip a coin?
Yeah, listen, clearly I'm going before the Congresswoman. Yeah, she's been cooking all morning, y'all. And don't stop. In all seriousness, what I would say to the judge, to Your Honor, is the same thing I would say to all of us in this community. You peel back and look under the hood of what this conversation is really about, human nature. So many things in life fall on this thin line of hope and fear. And in voting, that seems to happen. We tend to put hope in candidates, our presidential candidates such as Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, John F. Kennedy. And then we see other candidates, unfortunately, lead with fear, whether it's Nixon or 45. I'm not going to say 45's name. What I will say is this. When it comes to misinformation, when it comes to disinformation, it is a tactic to suppress. If I can create enough fear or anxiety in you, you won't move. You'll stay on the couch. And so we got to get very, very intentional about not just this notion of hope, but the tangible of making it a reality for folk why your vote matters. Let me tell you what actually getting off the couch, moving, getting to the poll does for your life, does for your children, does for your family, does for your community. Your Honor, you've been in the trenches for a considerable amount of time. We're grateful for you. We appreciate you. We respect you. And today is just a small portion of the way we honor you.
Thank you.
I had the great honor of clerking for Judge Clemon when I finished law school, and it was the most formative experience of my life. So I'm going to say publicly what I've said to you privately. Thank you. I wouldn't be the person I am today had I not had an opportunity to sit at his feet and really understand the law and the power. When he would say, "We're the judge," I'm like, "We're the judge?" No, but Judge, I hope you know that you filled so many voids in my life as a mentor, as a father figure, and I wouldn't have run for Congress had I not had your approval, your encouragement, your support. And so I say to all of us, the best way we can honor Judge Clemon is to follow his lead and to realize that that generation, his generation, they didn't just happen upon Selma, Alabama. They just didn't happen upon all the cases that Judge Clemon helped to file in Alabama, like to desegregate University of Alabama. That doesn't happen. They were tacticians. They were strategists. And we need to take a page from their playbook. And I just want you to know that your legacy means so much more to all of us than we can articulate. I mean, you know, I think that your generation's selflessness is a lesson for all of us, right? And so I'm just going to end by quoting another dear mentor, John Lewis, who literally on the bridge, his last time on that bridge in Selma, he was riddled with cancer. And he stood up strong and tall and said, "Never give up. Never give in, keep the faith, and keep our eyes on the prize."
And that is a brilliant note to end this conversation. What I would say to you, Judge Clemon, is thank you. In you, we see that the movement continues. Thank you.
Love you, Judge Clemon. Thank you all. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please thank our panelists for today. Our moderator, Chair Jackson, with the Alabama State Director of Woke Vote, Mayor Randall Woodson, Congresswoman Terry Sewell, and our retired judge, the Honorable U.W. Clemon.
Well, again, good morning, everyone. We are so grateful. All of you are taking time out of your busy plastic week to be with us. Your Honor, don't go too far. You can stand or have a seat. It is on you. It does not matter. A couple things I want to do. One, I want to thank those who made AWAKEN possible. Denise Gilmore and your entire team. Thank you so much. Our musical performers, our closing remarks given by Reverend Thomas Beavers, and to all of you all, again, need a favor. It's still classic. We still got a day and a half to go. Say hi to the patient. I have a couple things I have to do today, everybody. At this time, there's some remarks I want to give. But I have to be honest, they are not my words. And so, when I get done saying all of this, I'm going to ask this young man to stand up and be acknowledged for what I'm about to say. I am channeling him and I am channeling his words to acknowledge our honoree today. In honor of U.W. Clemon, we must remember that when growing up, he had to face-to-face encounters with injustice. Being born into the oppression of Jim Crow segregation, the man resolved to change things, to make things better, and to set wrong right. The slightest sin of injustice seemed to create a rebellion at the core of his being, which rises up to meet and defeat injustice. There were no man-made obstacles that could block him from his God-given destiny to be recognized as a man of excellence. He had to work very hard. A graduate of Miles College and Columbia Law School, an activist for civil rights, and a civil lawyer where he helped break the back of Jim Crow. One of the first black men elected to the Alabama House of Representatives, and it's one of the first black men in so many other categories. He truly paved the way for others. It was in 1974 that we worked on the Alabama Democratic Party Election Law Reform Commission to make registering to vote and to make voting itself more accessible. Perhaps Judge Clemon's crowning achievement was being recognized for his legal brilliance and integrity when President Jimmy Carter appointed UW as the first black man to the United States District Court, the Northern District of Alabama. Serving and retiring as Chief Judge, his judicial opinions continue to redress grievances and set wrongs right. At every opportunity, Judge Clemon has fought for equal justice, racial justice, social justice, environmental and economic justice, and yes, criminal justice. It's truly been an honor to have watched UW work for individual rights and freedoms for the last 50 years. Congratulations and thank you, Judge. And Judge, again, these are not my words at this time. I would like the man who wrote these words to stand, and that is Governor Don Clemon. everyone. Your Honor, if you could, please come to the podium. It is my honor. Yeah, must be doing something wrong, right? It is my honor to present you with the Putting People First Award. And it reads, the Putting People First Award given to federal judge U.W. Clemon for his commitment to civil and human rights in Birmingham, Alabama, October 25th, 2024. And at this time, Your Honor, for any words you want to say, any closing remarks you want to give, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brother Mayor, neighbor. My brothers and sisters, I woke up this morning with a mind stayed on voting. Because I heard a candidate who aspires to be president of this great nation declare that ours is a garbage can. I know that the vote will keep our nation, the democracy which it has been and hopefully will forever be. I've seen in these 81 years, I've seen the power of the vote. My senior year at Columbia Law School, I did a paper called Reapportionment in Alabama, the Unfulfilled Duty. Well, that duty is still unfulfilled. But in the meantime, I've seen the power of the vote. The tenacity of lawyers like some in this room fighting the good fight for the vote. And after that decision in Reynolds versus Sims, I and Richmond Pearson, because of the vote, ended up in the Alabama State Senate first in over 100 years. And I saw the power of the vote manifested through us and people like Alvin Holmes when the question came up about governance of Alabama State University, Alabama State College and Alabama A&M College. They were both, unlike the white institutions of higher learning, they were both under the State Board of Education. And Alvin Holmes and others in the House passed a bill creating separate boards of trustees for Alabama State and A&M. And in the Senate, we passed it without much difficulty. And then Governor Wallace decided that he would make the boards of those two black institutions majority white boards. But the Lord had intervened, and I was chairman of the Rules Committee. And that didn't happen. I've seen the power of the vote when it resulted in the election of the first black mayor of Birmingham. Yes. And when Jimmy Carter was uncertain as to whether he wanted to appoint me to a federal judgeship. My client, Richard Arrington, contacted the White House and said that he wouldn't make up his mind about whom to support for the presidency as between Ted Kennedy and Jimmy Carter until Jimmy Carter decided which person he would appoint to the first black federal judgeship in Alabama. In a matter of days, the president made up his mind and advocated Alabama's first black federal judge. So I'm committed to the power of the vote, and I've since I retired from the federal bench, continued to work in the field of voting and other civil rights. I'm a very rich man, married to Barbara for 57 years, and she's been very supportive family, not in the best of health, looking for a major operation in the next 3 weeks, but the Lord is good. And whatever happens, everything's all right. I encourage all of you as I accept this award to remain dedicated to the power of the vote, because it will set you free. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge Clemon. Please welcome to the stage community builder and motivational speaker, Dr. Thomas Beavers, pastor of the Star Church, for today's closing remarks for AWAKEN 2024.
Good morning, everybody. You can continue to stand. I'm super excited to be here to our honoree, Judge U.W. Clemons. I'm excited to be here. A couple of years ago, I found myself in a legal matter, and I ended up losing the case. I really believe with all of my heart that I lost it, not because of my perspective, but because I did not have the right person hiring me. My mother is, or the right person representing me. My mother is a retired judge. She retired from the city of Birmingham and from Jefferson County. And she kept telling me, Thomas, you need to hire U.W. Clemons. And I thought because my perspective was right, that I was going to win no matter what. And as a result, I ended up losing that case. I say that to say this, your name holds so much weight. So much weight. And the Bible declares in Proverbs 22, beginning with verse number 1, that a good name is to be chosen even over great riches. And so we honor you on the day, we thank you on the day for your service. I want to close with a word of prayer. Father in heaven, thank you for your goodness, your grace, your mercy. Thank you for what our eyes have seen, what our ears have heard, what our hearts have felt, what our minds have understood. God, I pray right now in the name of Jesus that these civil rights that we have today, as a result of our ancestors marching, in spite of being beaten by dogs, sprayed with hoses, and beaten with billy clubs. God, I pray right now that we would recognize the importance of our voice through the vote. God, I pray that this message will pass down from the elder to the younger, and I pray that we will do all of our parts to pass this message down, God. We pray in the name of Jesus that regardless of who's in the White House, Jesus, that you would reign supreme, that you would operate. And God, we all have the person that we want to be in the White House. But God, we're leaning and we're depending on you, Father God. And we thank you not just for what's going on nationally, God, we thank you for what's going on locally. God, we pray that you bless our efforts in Jesus' mighty name. Take us from this place, but never from your presence. Amen, amen, amen.
Thank you, and this concludes the 2024 AWAKEN Stay Woke in Voting Rights.